This kind of follows on from my view about Christian cynicism that I expressed last week. Stoicism is a much more articulate and long-winded philosophy than cynicism, but developed out of cynicism, and is often considered to have influenced Christianity. It's a materialist, pantheist and fatalist philosophy that I myself adopted when I was having a spiritual crisis to do with my Christianity, but I'm now a Christian again. Stoicism basically involves the idea that the entire universe is a material reasoning substance. The active principle is the logos, as it is in Christianity, and evil is an illusion. Evil is the result of not perceiving mixed blessings or not seeing the whole picture. And in fact, if you were able to see the whole picture, you would realize that the universe as a whole was good. It believes that happiness is achieved by virtue, and when I say virtue, I'm talking about living according to nature. Nature being according to reason. So in a way, it's a bit like what the Vulcans believed in Star Trek. Because also it believes that unhappiness arises from passion. So a sage is immune from misfortune. Whatever happens to you materially is irrelevant. You can be tortured, you can be imprisoned, you can have a terminal disease, you can get horrible letters in the post, you can have your family murdered and all this, and none of that will affect you if you have control. You recognise that you have control over your reaction to things rather than what's happening out there in the world. I actually think this is a bit dubious because it means two things. One, it means that self-control is always possible, and I don't think it always is. There are people who are more impulsive than others, for example. And the other thing is, I think that it closes down one side of your life emotionally, and that means that you're not living as a full human being in the same way. So it's perfectly possible to achieve that form of detachment, but I don't think it's actually particularly desirable. Stoicism is also deist rather than theist. It doesn't believe that there's an emotionally involved God. However, nowadays we would probably think of such emotional repression as very unhealthy and as something that would express itself in some other way, like a stomach ulcer or physical illness of some kind, if we didn't express those emotions or give in to them to some extent, so it would have consequences. I'm not sure whether that's true. It also believed in knowledge in the sense that it believed that it was possible to arrive at certainty about the outside world, which is quite an odd thought to me. Philosophy for them is the art of living. That is, if you apply reason to your life, you will find that you are happy, and that is the exercise of philosophy. It's also cosmopolitan, which is also an idea expressed in the New Testament. The equal treatment of all, in the same way as everyone is equal in Christ. That includes slaves and free people, obviously, but also women and men and the like. They both believe in inner freedom. They believe in kinship with God, in other words, living according to nature, which is God for them. They have the pneuma, the spirit, in other words, and they also have the idea that earthly treasures and attachments are futile and don't lead to happiness. But the differences are that there's emotional involvement in Christianity, and Stoicism doesn't completely reject emotion, but it does have a rather dubious approach to it. One of the things that appeals to me about Stoicism is that its physics and cosmology are closer to today's physics and cosmology than the medieval view. And that is something that I've expressed in my Idea on the Half Bakery, Flying Electric Spaghetti Monster. However, adopting Stoicism without the physics may not work. So the idea that you can adopt it just as a way of life without regard to what it says about the nature of reality is perhaps a bit dubious. And maybe you can't really do that because it relies on such ideas, for example, out of materialism, really. Now, does Stoicism take over in a way which is incompatible with the Christian faith? People could say the same thing about yoga. Does it rest too strongly on one's own will? I think maybe it does. Now, I think that it has other things that are quite positive. For example, fire as lightning means that you can actually see the electromagnetic force as a form of fire, and that's a way of modernising the philosophy, which it sort of needs to be done. And the skeptics are their opponents. The serenity prayer is actually very close to Stoicism, and I have a feeling it comes from Stoicism, which is that God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and wisdom always to tell the difference. Now the question is, you've got these two things out there. You've got Mithraism, other mystery religions such as the cult of Cybele, and Stoicism itself, and these are seen as influence on Christianity. Are these a problem for me as a Christian? I don't think they are, because I think that wherever the idea comes from, it's a valid idea. And also we don't know that God wasn't working in the world to create a situation where Christianity could arise with those philosophical precursors if they are relevant to Christianity. So that's all I've got to say for today. If you like this video, please share, rate, comment and subscribe. If you dislike it, please tell me so I can improve, and I'll see you tomorrow.